Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire MTR Network at the MTR Network. You can visit our homepage at mtrnetwork.net for everything that we offer. You can find all of our normal podcasts, our regular podcasts. Subscribe to those podcasts in the iTunes Store. Subscribe on Stitcher. I know a lot of people say, I subscribe to the main MTR feed. Well, what we're doing this fall, we're kind of test driving is with the new functionality on the podcast apps, is that we're putting out all these extra episodes like the quick snaps that come out on Tuesdays. Those are all going to be coming out, but they're not hitting the main feed. I know over on Super Tuesday we're doing mailbag episodes. We're answering your questions about comics, gaming, and movies, but we're not going to have those hit the main feed. We don't want to clutter up the feed, so make sure you subscribe to those shows that you want to make sure you get all the content that you know you need. Also, while you're visiting mtrnetwork.net, go ahead and go premium. It's only $8 a month, hours of more content. My very first and maybe last Hell No Cupid episode is up. That's our dating and romance show, and I'm talking about the steps that got me to marriage. If you know me and you can't believe how I got here, then, congratulations, you're right. Neither can I. Listen to the podcast and see how I got there. If you don't know the harrowing tales of how I did end up on the cusp of marriage, it is a pretty good listen, I've been told. What else do we have here? We've also got, when you subscribe in the iTunes Store to the UD Pod, make sure you leave that 5-star review. Anything you leave in a 5-star review will be read on the air by me. I've had to read some pretty unflattering things about myself and football teams I support, which, hey, it hurt to do, but it's a promise I've made. So if you leave the 5-star review, I'll read whatever you write in there, even if it refers to a certain Super Bowl that shall remain nameless and never mentioned again. I think that's it. Oh, yeah, go to the store, mtrnetwork.net. The store is back up. The Patreon is up. We're going to be bringing back live shows. The Blame Chris t-shirts are coming. Blame D-Palm. I don't know where you really use the Blame D-Palm ones. I don't really screw with y'all's characters for fun like that. I think maybe if I tell you your team is bad and they're still bad, maybe get a Blame D-Palm shirt. But then it's just misplaced anger. I'll take your money, but just recognize that you should be more mad at your team. I think that was fair. I think that's a fair way to look at that. That's all the plugging we've got for this morning. Before we get into it, I do want to bring up a new feature I said was coming, and I need to make sure I stick to it. It's the War Games feature. And while War Games is a great creation by Dusty Rhodes, we're taking the name for that to be different on this show. It's where people write in and tell me the moment that either football or whatever sport it was decided you may not be done with it. You may coach, you may love, you may support, but it might be done with you physically. We have an email in from listener Joe. He had 2 stories. He said you can pick whichever one you want or you can do both. Because I'm me and super extra, I'm going to do both. The first story is, during spring training, I played cornerback. Darrell Green was and is still my favorite player, and I wanted to play the position he played so well during one particular practice. The QB handed the ball off to our star running back, and I went after him. I had him in my sights, and the next thing I saw was the sky. Turns out the center saw me and laid me out. That was the end of my DB career. But undaunted, because he's like us, and when you get one door shuts, another door opens. He said he wanted to try something else. So during the season, he played wide receiver too. I figured I was pretty good, but we had a lot of receivers already, so I didn't really see the field much. One practice, the coach had me run a 5-yard slant. I was a pretty solid route runner, so I did my route, made my cut where I was supposed to, and the QB threw the ball. Great, right? Except he threw the ball high, and I had to jump. Never jump. I managed to get my hand on the ball. The next thing I felt was a strong safety's helmet in my back. But instead of going down like a sensible person would do, I landed on my feet and tried again. No! He hit me square in the sternum. All the air left my lungs. I never worried about getting on the field because the hell with that. Have a good one. Thanks for the email. Write in your story. I'll read it on the air. We stole this blatantly from Bomani Jones because the stories of football quit y'all or quit all of us really are legendary. And I got to ask our guest today, Rich Fann from Buffalo Wins&nbsp from PWTorch Livecast, the deep dive on Saturdays. You're currently a football coach. Was there a moment where you, playing scholastically, had that wake-up call where it says, nope, this might just be a spectator sport for me?
Let's see. That would be, first of all, thank you for having me on. Do you remember James Mungro?
I do.
James Mungro was the starting fullback for East Stroudsburg University East Stroudsburg High School when I played at Pocono Mountain. And I was a defensive tackle / linebacker. That's how bad we were. I could be at any
slash when it's slash and then one got his hand down, the other one doesn't. Always a lot of questions.
Yeah, so I happened to be at 5. I think at the time I was 5'6", 170. Either way, I was going to be a dead man because he was a grown man at that point. He was like 6 foot, 230. I was either going to be a one technique that had to hold a double team or an inside linebacker that had to run headlong into him as fullback. And for that play, I decided to be the one technique, not play my gap, shoot the gap, tackle him in the backfield, and then proceed to celebrate in front of him. The next play at linebacker, he carried me for 30 yards.
Not 30.
30.
Oh.
When we were doing the production meeting, we mentioned like Vince and like having things he can hide. Like I don't have that on tape because my folks were working at the time, and I'm glad. I don't need that on somebody's
you were able
huddle.
to escape having that be captured for perpetuity, huh?
I wrote that man like he was my long lost father giving me a piggyback ride.
Yo,
he went down is because I basically tripped him, and then I was like, nope.
But you didn't quit, but you did know at that moment that your football career had an end date.
I didn't, but then when we switched, I played guard, and he was a linebacker. And I pulled, and he wrong-armed me into the next century.
Oh, you had a long day.
Yeah. Once I did the little celebration, he was like target acquired. He found his fish.
Well, the thing is, you got to celebrate when you can because you don't get many, especially like if you know it's a beast, like take your moment. Like you may pay for it later, but you got to take that moment.
Yeah, so I was that dude for a good, especially in college. Say, hey, yeah, James Mungro, yeah, I tackled him for loss once. Like if we had Twitter back then, I definitely would have put that in my bio. I tackled James Mungro for a loss once, and he carried me like a small child the next play.
Like held the second half off. That's how it's Twitter. I tackled him for a loss. That's all you got to say. Never tell the full story. It's Twitter.
Good call.
You got to game these characters, man. Well, all right. Well, we had you on earlier this year, but I got to be honest. It was the weekend that the hurricane came through and ended up hitting Atlanta. I lost power for a week, and so while I do have a wonderfully edited, very funny podcast that you and I did to kick off the NFL season, unfortunately, no one's ever going to hear it.
Aww.
So what I decided was say, hey, look, let's run it back. Let's do it again. Let's bring Rich on. He's got a couple more Saturdays in the can on the deep dive. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the world in sports. So let's start there. PWTorch, probably the oldest professional wrestling publication on the internet. You run the live cast on Saturdays, the deep dive at 6 p.m. I've been a guest twice now. Hopefully we'll be guests again very soon. What was the most recent topic you guys have covered?
Well, let's see. This entire month, if I can borrow the unfortunately horribly racist Tim, the two-man tailors, salute to things. This month has been a salute to diversity in wrestling, not just in the visual and audio, but also in the fans and the people that follow it. So I started first with Nick Kingston, the creator of Headlocked, and talked about how he started his journey from wrestling fan to wrestling comic book creator and starter par excellence. This week I had 26-year Torch VIP member Brian Austin come on and talk about his favorite WWE character, Goldust, its inception from 95 and lasting 22 years at this point, even with time off. And the rest of the month, I'm going to have Mike Sempervive in a Torch Observer crossover episode next week. And I'm going to hopefully finish up with a queer wrestler in the UK. And I'm just trying to clear his schedule because I'm looking forward to because Jack Sexsmith is one of my favorite wrestlers in progress, and him being out and being as on the forefront as he can be with the LGBTQIA community is something I want to kind of get out for wrestling fans to see that there's more to what we like than what we like.
Right on, man. Well, that's awesome. I think it's really cool that you're spining that spotlight on places that don't usually get the press or the pub, and PWTorch is probably the biggest vehicle for it, so doing the good work, man. I won't be nearly as enlightening. Hopefully next time we come on, we can have a little fun, talk about some interesting things, but every time I come on, I know it's going to be a fun topic. I know we're going to get a lot done, and I know we're going to have a great time. So make sure you guys check him out if you're interested at all in professional wrestling, the attitudes and the culture around it. The best part about Rich's show is he doesn't just tell you the event that's going on. He doesn't just talk about hubbub backstage. What he does, he takes an aspect of a culture that either you love and understand or want to know more about, and takes really that deep dive, hence the name, into it to let you understand it more. That's a great show. You guys should definitely check it out. All right, let's talk about the week in sports. And we're going to start with a sport that's close to my heart. Just kidding, because The men's national team missed the World Cup. And, Rich, I'm going to be honest. I am a casual of most casual soccer fans. I do, however, salute the men's national team because once every 4 years, I get to do a good bout of, let's say, midday drinking in July because for somehow, some way, our soccer team is going to lose on foreign soil. Now, I feel like this has been robbed of me. And while I'll find other reasons to drink in the summer, I do have to wonder, is this, because you see the soccer truthers, the people who think that this is what the next wave of American sports is this a big blow to them? Because honestly, and I didn't know this until I said the number pointed out to me, this is the first cup we've missed since '86. People, I guess the coach allowed to resign. They just did this huge overhaul. Just strictly from an outsider in perspective, like, they've lost the PR and the visual battle. Like, I think of men's soccer in America, I think of literally a joke at this point.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with men's national team is, as I was explaining to some of my friends who are I'm a soccer fan, but when it comes to the men's national team, I haven't been that close to it. This loss, this prevention from being in the World Cup is the canary in the coal mine, but so many other canaries have died in the mine, we've forgotten which issues have to get fixed first. I mean, if you start from the bottom level, there should be no reason that a person like Christian Pulisic, who plays now in the Bundesliga in Germany, his parents had to pay upwards of like somewhere between $5,000 and $17,000 over the course of his career as a youth player to get him into the facilities that got him to the fact that he could play in Europe. Most other places in the world, much like with professional football or any other sport we play here in the States, you just get on a team and play and get good. And if you're good enough, you might get onto a travel team, but a lot of that stuff's going to be supplemented. This is the sport of the rich here. And when it's the sport of the rich, upper middle class maybe gets frozen out, you don't have opportunities for growth. I don't want it to be something like every World Cup is like, what happens if LeBron James played soccer? LeBron James wasn't going to play soccer. He played basketball. Is that you can't think of it that way, because what happened if Yao Ming decided to play tennis? Like, what the heck? Like, these are non sequiturs. What you have to think about as a kid that isn't going to learn excellent styles of soccer. Like, I can think here in Pittsburgh, we have a big population of Eastern European and Central and South American folks that just started moving to Pittsburgh. I would want, if my son's playing soccer, not for it to be some washed out kid who played at NC State. I would want it to be someone that came from a country that actually was decent playing it and just played it to play. Because he's going to learn how to play soccer the way it's meant to be played, not the way we want it to be robotically played, because that makes it look good when you're wearing your little crisp white outfits. Does that make sense?
I think it's really interesting that you went to the thing I was going to actually lead us to, was the root of the issue of American soccer. Tyler Twellman's rant after the game on ESPN is making the rounds, but he never once addresses the fact that you're right. This is a sport of access. It's a sport. Baseball and tennis are generally thought of as sports of access because the equipment does cost much. Hockey is one of those sports. Basketball and football because of the scholarship program, the way schools are set up, and basketball because all you really need is a court and a ball. They're seen as ease of access sports that anyone across the socioeconomic strata can be successful in. Soccer, for some reason here, has been codified, like you said, by the haves. The have-nots have no foothold into organized soccer. It costs money as opposed to these kids getting scholarships, they're paying for a spot. It's the most backwards thing in the world. Is there enough of an uproar or enough realism in American U.S. men's soccer to say, hey, we know this is a problem, here's how we fix it? Or is there too much money being made to ever really address it, and it's more profitable to shuffle deck chairs in the Titanic?
I think one of the bigger issues is we have to confront an issue that's something that the soccer is access for all everywhere else in the world. You could be black, right, white, Latino, etc. Here, it is decidedly, unless you're a transplant. Like my buddy mentioned this in the Slack I'm in with my Buffalo expatriates. Even though I'm from Brooklyn, I'm somehow in a Buffalo expatriates group. But that's because of the Bills, and we'll get to that eventually. He mentioned we're going to lose between, and that's what people don't think about when they think in their little, and this kind of ties into the intersectionality of the president. When you have policies and you say you're greenlighting policies and you say you're a fan of these policies, we're going to lose a generation of Mexican-American soccer players that will now play for the Mexican national team.
Yep.
And you can't unring that bell. What are you going to say? No, we'll be less racist in 4 years. Like, we're going to miss a World Cup cycle. So because of that, now, not only are you the racist, but you're the bad racist. Even the Russians can pick up the occasional, like, Brazilian and give them a quote unquote, like, passport. We got problems. And I don't know if people like Sunil Gulati have the temerity to handle what they have to do in order to fix these problems.
There you have it. I wanted to talk to someone who knew more about this than I did, and I stumbled across you as a soccer fan and did not know that about you. But this is good. This is growth. I'm learning as a man. And something else I'm learning is that the erasure of women will in affect every space. Because there are people who say, look, the U.S. soccer's missing the World Cup. I'm like, the women tend to ball out every time y'all pay attention to them. Like, I'm the most, like I said, most casual you could be. Even I was like, hey, man, I watch the women. They tend to embarrass fools. Like, that's, people like, oh, the World Cup's great. The Women's World Cup is fun because, yeah, it's patriotic and we all get to communally drink, but we also tend to whip people's asses.
Right. And that's typically
like
the fun part of
win,
American sport.
Not like 2-1, like whip people's asses.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can make our women John, or is it just the baked-in misogyny that's going to stop it? Because if it is, then I'll just stop complaining about it and just kind of, just be mad and be loud. But, like, if there's anything I can do to change this, I need to change because I like to win when my national teams do things. I like to follow U.S. basketball simply because they win. I don't follow U.S. wrestling as much anymore because we don't win as much as we used to.
Right. I mean, we could only get a Brock Lesnar once every 20, 30 years.
God, and yeah, well, let's not talk about the missed opportunities with Brock in the Olympic system. Is there any hope? I'm trying to say the moral is, can we stop equating U.S. soccer with this failed men's team? We're Americans. We cheer for greatness. What the hell is going on?
The big thing is that's it. We have to accept greatness in all forms, and until we do that, which I feel like that's just something that seems to be a step too far for a lot of folks. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me personally, because if you're going to follow a winner, the women's national team is exactly what we want in terms of what we're looking for. But there's always going to be these qualifiers. Oh, it's just like, no, man, no, they're pretty good.
Has the lack of moneyed backing and kind of the special interest people coming in and greasing the wheels for certain types of people on the women's side, has that led to a deeper talent base and a more equitable distribution of opportunity?
I believe so. And I believe that because of the baked-in misogyny, as you mentioned, we're in a situation as well where they're not getting compensated for being, in the last 10 years, perennially the more successful squad. That's a question.
Yeah, talking about equality in that realm is a whole. That's a 2-hour show.
Yeah,
because not only do they win, but they also generate money. People pay to see them. People pay for their gear. I see more women's national team gear than I see men's, except for the rare occasion we win a game. And then the men's stuff comes out for a second, and then you resell it, I guess, again in 4 years if they win another game. Well, let's get out of soccer, get into football. And I know people don't like politics in their sports, but hey, politics keeps invading my sports. Donald Trump this week, the Cheeto flavored racist in office, said that the NFL teams should stand for the anthem, that they'll be changing policies to stand. This, of course, is sound and fury signifying nothing because, like much of what he says and does, nothing actually happened. No policy was changed. No one's being forced to stand. And Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, went as far as to say is that he thinks that the players kneeling is not just not a problem, he thinks it's fine. Players have a right to express themselves in a respectful way, which is the entire crux of the entire debate here, and that's something that they did from the beginning. They said they wanted to, they asked for advice, and the kneeling was what was settled upon. You're a football fan, Rich. Any statement out of the Bills front office?
The Bills kept their mouths shut because their
That's probably
owners,
the best thing to do.
Well, no, the owners are Republican. Here's the deal with the owners. The owners are billionaire frackers. So they're Democrat or Republican in terms of their support based on what you think about blowing the earth up to get gas. And so they paid money for the inauguration. I think they put like $500K.
If you're going to be one of these owners who supported what's happening in Washington, the best option is to shut the fuck up. However, Jerry Jones has taken it upon himself to not be quiet and to speak loudly. And what's crazy to me is the stories that came behind it. So originally, the story was Jerry Jones announced to God, the world, and anyone who wants to financially back the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys that none of the Cowboys players would be kneeling, and he then doubled down and said if any player kneeled, he would not play. Behind the scenes, what's come out later is that the players and coaches and staff all agreed that, hey, look, we all have principles, but this, and I can actually, kind of understand where Jerry's coming from. On the level of money that Jerry's playing with, we need to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Cowboys are a brand that aren't just the local team. They are America's team. There's more, and you can say they're sellouts. You can say that they folded to Jerry, that they all reached an accord not to kneel. Maybe they're all grown-ups doing business. I don't know. You can look at it however you want to. You can put whatever value judgment you want to. What you can say is that even if internally they had decided as a group, we're not going to do this. We all understand where we all come from. We're all going to, bite our tongues a little bit here for the good of the group. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe it's not. I do know that when you come out and claim that you've told these grown-ass men what they are and will not do, you've now created an issue.
Yep.
You tried to look tough, and now you've got problems. Because when they came in the locker room after that announcement, FDT was playing on the speakers, on a loop. For those who don't know, FDT is a rap song that came out last year.
Right.
The initials are fuck Donald Trump. So, yeah. I mean, I bet there are more guys who want to kneel in that Cowboys locker room. And I think that I kept going back to a quote from The Simpsons when they pull Bart into detention. He says, "Do I have to go? I started a fire this morning I should really keep an eye on." Jerry and his boys are off this week.
Right.
They lit the match, tossed their grenade, and said, "All right, we'll see y'all in a week," and bounced. They created a problem. And honestly, this is a controversy, and I use the term as loosely as possible, that was dying down. The conversation had largely moved on. It was largely about what next, the next steps are going to be taken. You saw it from the NFL and the NFLPA. However disingenuous or ingenious, goodness. However genuine or disingenuous you found these claims to be, you did know that there were players and owners who were going to be holding meetings, who were going to be meeting together and discussing these issues and trying to come to some sort of, not disagreement, but a path forward that seemed like, for the first time in a place where I rarely say it, actual tangible progress was at least going to be on the table. But now we've got to talk about Jerry Jones and him poking these men in the chest and telling them what they won't do. You can only poke a man in the chest so long before he hits you. But you don't believe me, you weren't in enough fights as a child.
I think one of the biggest issues with that situation was him doing the pregame kneel in Arizona and making sure everyone saw. I mean, the footage that came out after it was what kind of was damning, in that he chased the cameraman down to get the angle. Like, not since WWE have I seen direction so forthright. And
see, the thing is, even WWE, they've done that shot before. They don't need direction. They know what to do.
Right.
Because of pros.
And that's it. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't poke a man in the chest, tell them that. And you can't say that I discussed with the president that he was right. There are rules to this and we're going to handle it, because now you're saying, not only are you poking them in the chest, you're poking the other 31 owners in the chest and telling them, I'm running this.
I think this is a major misstep by Jerry, and I don't think it's going to go away with the bye week. I think that he stepped into a problem here, and we'll see how it pans out. Let's stay in the NFL here. And ESPN suspended Jamel Hill.
Mm-hmm.
We had Nat on a couple weeks ago during the first alleged suspension, first time she got in a little dust up with the company, and we talked about what was going to happen next. This is one of the outcomes we talked about. Because if you read it, it's a much lesser transgression. This is one of those get-back calls. This is a missed a hold down there, we'll call you something down here, we'll all even out. And Michael Smith not working the show that night, I couldn't have applauded more.
And then her note, where she, right before he was to return, saying, I can't have a more supportive partner. I'll see you in a little bit. And
and the first thing he said was, what is understood need not be explained.
Right.
And he got to work. He did his job. but the symbol of him saying no that night struck volumes.
Yes.
Roger Goodell's Twitter, his wife's on Twitter under a burner account defending him from strangers because Roger Goodell's wife loves him more than anyone loves Kevin Durant because he had to do it himself.
Why you had to go there? Why?
Because it's true. Like honestly, like Kevin. Like I'm glad Kevin loves himself this much, but Kevin, like, go meet a girl.
Yeah, I mean, jeez, that's tough.
And if you talk bad about Allen Iverson in a Sixers game, Allen Iverson would cuss you out. Why does no one love Kevin Durant enough?
I just got one name, Miko.
Yo, Miko Grimes. Brett Grimes isn't even that good. Miko Grimes make you think he's the second coming to Deion Sanders, though. The way she defends him.
And she'll dare you to prove her wrong.
Yo, and you won't because you can't disprove crazy.
Is it love or is it crazy? Because
yes.
I will not on UD Pod say one or the other because I don't want Miko in my mentions. I don't need that work.
Miko, she'll find a way to find me. I'm gonna get cussed out over this. All of this. I can already feel it coming. I apologize for nothing. Come get me. Make me famous. Let's talk about the shortcoming in humanity that is NFL Thursday night. Yes, it's too much to ask for you to play one of these games more than 7 days apart, but let's do it in 4 because your body probably can't handle it. The Eagles look like they might have a really good football team. The defense continues to be what I hoped they would be. And the kid Goff, this is a year where he's kind of come through and shown that those flashes from the beginning of last season weren't just flashes. They might have been the portents of something real. Cam might actually be back here, and that makes me nervous. But the big story for me was Luke Kuechly getting the injury again. And once again, I don't watch Thursday Night Football. I don't do it. It's a practice of mine. I will not do it. But I did hear about Luke Kuechly, and it sounds all bad, man.
Yeah, it was. I saw the game. It was sad. And the hits, like at this point, I'm starting to ask the question of, is Luke Kuechly, like you mentioned earlier, did the sport tell you it didn't love you anymore? I think at this point the NFL is telling Luke Kuechly, baby, you need something else. This is not for you anymore.
Go sell some pizzas with Peyton. Like do something else. Like it's really, it's one of those things where how long as a fan can you keep watching the same guys get concussed?
Right.
Like now, yeah, we've all accepted we have some deficiencies in our own humanity because we do watch this sport where people are literally killing themselves. Yes, we all agree that there's a level of hypocrisy, blah, blah, blah. When is you sick of watching the same guy get hurt?
Right. And we hide behind platitudes. We hide behind the idea of it's a quote-unquote short week, so you got a chance to get them. What you're really saying when you say that is the human body hasn't recovered from the car accidents, and now it's time to get them even more.
There's a reason these Thursday night games are always, by and large, poorly played and poorly watched. Because they're hard to watch because you're not getting peak football because you just got done being in one of these horrible, horrible events. Football games, and I know we all joke and laugh, oh, you've got turf toe or the flu. Hey, guys, football games are really, really painful.
Yeah.
They're really hard on your body. Doing it twice in 4 days is asking a lot. And I would love to see the number of people who enter concussion protocols on short weeks because of the Thursday night game. I bet the number, I don't know, I'm not going to guess. I just think the number is interesting to be investigated.
Listen, this past Friday, my team lost. We got blown out by a better team. And my freshman starter is 14 years old. My mother-in-law sent me a text a couple of days ago saying she wanted to know why I came down in the fourth quarter and started calling plays from the sideline instead of the booth. And I told her because I have a 14-year-old out there with 18-year-olds, and I need him to understand physically there are some things he can't do, and I don't want to see him try, like trying to scramble out of the pocket like the seniors had done. Because, again, I'm a coach, and I want to mitigate risk. I don't want a 14-year-old running out there with a Division II 17-year-old coming at him. That's not going to end well. And in the NFL, you don't have such coaches. You just have get the play done. And so when you watch Thursday night games, I get a little queasy watching a guy like Luke Kuechly get his block knocked off after I saw him sit out for 8 weeks last year.
Yeah. Let's stay with the NFL. So I'm not one of those people who's hyperbolic and likes to deem things over before they're over. Giants done, dude. Like the Giants are done. Like maybe for like a couple years.
Giants are in the perfect position, though, because they're going to do.
How dare you?
They are, because they're in the position where they can do what the Steelers did. They can move on and say goodbye to Eli. Because as I was explaining to my uncle, who's a Giants fan, it's like either you guys keep Eli and pay $22 million next year for the right for him to throw pick sixes, or
do it.
You draft with your top 5 pick a new quarterback, or you join the Russian roulette game that is bringing Kirk Cousins out of his Washington football team parole, or you somehow, strike lightning in a bottle with some 7th rounder. But I think your division had enough of that luck. So you're bound to be the person that gets the next Willie Freeman that lasts about a half season.
Yeah, it's all bad. Like we got injuries all the receiving core. They've got a
their best receivers hurt. Their best receivers hurt in a contract.
Their best 2 receivers are hurt.
Yeah, I mean, are we gonna really say the other guy was still good? I mean,
he's fine. I said not the best 2, their best 2.
Okay, fair enough.
And you had an Eli Manning who was only looking young because of Odell Beckham. This also goes back to Beckham's being selfish. He's holding out. I want everyone to remember this injury the next time the owners use their pull in the media to make you hate the players for getting the money they're owed.
Some reason, man.
Odell Beckham is why you hold out.
Yep. Get it when it's good. Get it guaranteed as long as you can for as much as you can. And then, sort it out later.
That's why I hate fans. This and the burning of the Isaiah Thomas jerseys when he got traded after playing on the day after his sister died.
Right.
Ridiculous. Fans are the worst. Zeke got to sit now, huh?
Yeah.
So for those of you who missed it, the federal court has ruled that the NFL suspension of Ezekiel Elliott for the Cowboys will actually go into effect now. He'll be back available after, I think, the Friday after the Thanksgiving game. Ironically, this would be the last game he would have missed if he'd have taken the initial suspension. It's one of those stories where I feel like everyone's in the wrong, but I'm not willing to feel bad for Zeke for having to sit here. I'm just not.
Nope. Because he knew what he did was wrong, and if he didn't know what he did was wrong, that's even worse.
Yep. And when his defenders are just trying to find ways to discredit the woman and never once tell you that he flat out didn't do it, like that speaks a lot for itself too. All right, let's do this. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because a couple weeks ago you and your stupid Bills beat the Falcons. Congratulations. I don't think we're a very good football team, but I have to ask, are the Bills for real? Because we've seen the hot start before, Rich.
Well, here's the thing. I think I'm sorry, my son just had a little bit of a meltdown because he's supposed to leave with my wife, and he was promised FIFA, and he has his contract. And my man's like, I got my yardage, I need my pay. I think the Bills are what they're going to – I think they are who they are. I think the defense is legit. I think running a 4-3 with a little bit more blitz than they had under Eagles' current defensive coordinator, Mr. Schwartz, and less than Rex, and having a scheme that actually works better than Rex. Again, you know what? I take this win as a thank you from the Falcons for not getting snookered by Rex Ryan as he waited for Arthur Blank to say, no thanks, I don't want you anyway. But that's a story for another day. Because that's what he told him. He was like, I could have waited for that Falcons job, but I didn't want to wait. I was like, bro, you weren't getting that job. You weren't getting that job. Arthur Blank ain't high on your behind. He's not falling for it. But I think the defense is legit. I think Tyrod Taylor, who had a masterful, if I could point to anything, Kimberly Martin of the Buffalo News did a 40-minute interview with Tyrod Taylor this weekend where he talked about the fact that there is a black tax on quarterbacks, and he's fed up. And Kimberly is really the first writer to ask him questions about how he feels about that as opposed to giving the narrative back at him. Funny how that works, Miss Martin. Well done. But in that, Tyrod talks about, I got to have to deal with whatever I get. Because everyone already is going to say, for me as a black quarterback, I can't read in the middle of the field. I can't stay in the pocket, yada, yada. For me, looking at the Bills' offense, the man shouldn't stay in the pocket because his receivers are all death traps. He has a rookie who had 399 catches in college, Zay Jones from Eastern Carolina, that apparently can't catch in the NFL currently. He has three number fours, and Andre Holmes, a guy who got replaced by 2 first-round picks in Oakland. Jordan Matthews, who was good in Philadelphia, but obviously not good enough for them to retain. And Kalen Clay, a guy they traded for right before week 1 from the Carolina Panthers. So you put that all together and you have a recipe for, oh man, I got on, the all 22 crew shows up in Buffalo a lot, where they say, man, I really wish Tyrod would have stayed in the pocket because this guy was 3 steps open 5 minutes after he was sacked. That's because he was walking to the bench. So that sort of thing is going to be an issue. I think right now at 3-2, they're in a good spot, and they won't face that many more difficult defenses. But the problem's going to be, as injuries mount up, Taylor's going to be the guy to blame as they put inferior talent out there continually on offense. You mentioned earlier Jared Goff. I'm looking at Sammy Watkins. I'm looking at...
That was my next question. Like, I'm watching Sammy Watkins. I'm like, hey, man, you guys could really use number 1 receiver in Buffalo. Too bad you traded that guy.
Oh, and don't forget his new number 2 over there, Robert Woods, who they also let leave in free agency.
Oh, my God, you're right.
And in that same division, one of the key contributors in Kyle Shanahan's offense for San Francisco is Marquise Goodwin, who they also let go in free agency. So you had those 3 guys, and that's before you even get to Chris Hogan in New England. And so you have 4 really fast, really good receivers that all were not, quote-unquote, good enough for Buffalo because they wanted, quote-unquote, money, after a rookie contract, heaven forbid. And that's what you get, because Buffalo fans are like the worst when it comes to NFL fandoms in terms of money. It's like, at this amount of money, I really think this guy should be producing more. It's like, well, on what planet are you, Jim and Cheektowaga, the arbiter of what is deemed a fair contract?
Yeah. Fan expectations shouldn't be the barometer for, but unfortunately, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that maybe, just maybe, that enough of these wins are going to convince him to stick with Tyrod? Because I'll be honest, you guys started hot last year and folded down the stretch. Is this a wait-and-see approach that speaks more to the attitude of how people view and how maybe the ownership views the team itself more than how they view Tyrod?
I think it is a wait-and-see attitude, and I think they were hoping to kind of have their cake and eat it too. They were hoping to be high enough in terms of the draft that they were put in a position that they could get a big player and use their 2 first-round picks. But remember, they're kind of doing well, and then the Chiefs are outstanding right now. So both of their first-round picks would be in the mid-teens and late 20s, if not 30s, if the Chiefs keep it up. So for them, it may behoove them to keep Taylor unless they're going to go after, again, trade those magic beans of first-round picks in for Kirk Cousins, which I tell every Bills fan anytime they come in with that as a tweet, if you think paying Tyrod Taylor $10 million is overpaying a quarterback, you're going to have to start minimum $35 million just to get Cousins to pick up the phone, $75 million to make sure he stays on longer than you introducing this is X of the Buffalo Bills, and most likely somewhere over 150 if you want him to allow you to complete the sentence. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's Bill's corner that I had to afford him because, once again, the Falcons lost because a fumble was ruled, an incomplete pass was ruled a fumble.
I saw
because the officials were on the tape.
I don't know.
And we can't have any sense of fairness or right or do-goodery. You can't even admit it here on this podcast that you should not have won that game because you believe in the wrong things in life, which is fine. Baseball's happening. In the ALCS, Houston currently leads 2-0. In the NLCS, the Dodgers are up 1-0. That was your baseball. UNC. So there have been like 5 or 6 years of investigations into University of North Carolina's, I guess, their scholastic, the fairness of the classes offered to the athletes. There are a lot of no-show classes, a lot of easy classes that were offered. The ruling came down this week and said that because these classes were also offered to general students, it was not an impermissible benefit to football players or athletes. What they're saying is every school has these trash courses. These football players just found a way to game it, and nothing to see here.
Right.
There were people who wanted the NCAA to say these classes don't meet our standards, which you've got to realize that the NCAA has no scholastic standards. None. And for those of you who are waiting for the NCAA to legislate or arbitrate right and wrong in college athletics, you're dumber than rocks.
Yeah.
It's not about right and wrong. It's about, can we prove that someone got money that shouldn't have, or someone didn't give us the money that we're owed. Those are the big two. And nothing that occurred in UNC, despite the confirmation of no-show classes, despite the confirmation of classes where signing up gets you an A, because they were not inequitably permitted towards athletes, the NCAA has nothing to say. This is why I didn't want them dealing with Baylor or Penn State. It's why I don't want them dealing with any other situation. I honestly, the NCAA exists to keep them broke because they don't even run college football anymore. This wasn't even a question, it wasn't even a topic. I just wanted to talk about it because part of me says, F the NCAA, if you had subpoena power, maybe you'd find something. You guys are punks. But the other part of me says, like, maybe we should want these scholastic benchmarks that these people have to hit. Like, part of me is like, I really wish there was a body that I could trust to go in and say, hey, these classes aren't no classes, or these kids aren't learning anything. But there's nothing in place for that because no one actually cares about the student athletes.
Right. If you wanted to give a student athlete a fair shot, or if you wanted to give a student athlete, the what they were owed as far as the contributions to the bottom line of most of these athletic programs, sure, let's talk about that. But if it's just playing gotcha on one end while the bagman or bagmen get to kind of roll free, I don't.
What's the point? What are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, shoot, I'm not a big college basketball fan, but when I look at what's going on right now with the issues of the basketball teams and how you're bringing down all these coaches, it's really done by the FBI because it's like, hold up, we don't have a finger in this as well, and that's kind of disgusting. I really don't know what we're doing.
All right, well, let's get to the college football roundup because that's the place I'm most happy these days, the place that warms my soul the most. And what warms my soul the most starts with the greatest football team in the city of New York. Number one in your programs and number one in your hearts. The Ivy League leading Columbia Lions, Morningside Heights' own. They had homecoming this week. All right, so for those of you who don't know, I played at Columbia. I love Columbia. I love Columbia football. And 1996 was the last time we had a winning season. From 1996 to 2017, there's been one season where we did not finish with a losing season. It was my senior year. We went 5-5. That's the high water mark for Lions football from 96 to 2017, 5-5. The Columbia Lions peeled off their fifth straight win to go 5-0 on Saturday with an overtime victory at home against Penn, who have won the last two Ivy League titles. They did it in overtime. Penn scored a field goal early in overtime. On the retort, Columbia down 3, 3rd and 9. Anders Hill struck a beautiful pass. 24 yards, touchdown, roar Lion roar.
I mean,
I say all that to say this. I am excited for next week in New Haven. Or not, are they going to New Haven? I think it's New Haven. Wherever they go next week, it's a road game, I know that. If they can erase my class from this record book, I couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier. Never mention 06 again. They talked about us a lot because the game was on television yesterday. So the 06 team got a lot of play. I was like, I can't wait for us to be forgotten.
That's awesome. And that's the attitude you should take, not the 72 Dolphins popping bottles when excellence isn't exceeded.
No. It was such... This game. So Columbia goes down 14-0 early. They fight back. 21-point fourth quarter to tie it up to go to overtime. It's a game that this school loses, man. It's a game that this team loses, has always lost, and they're not losing them anymore. And it's exciting to see. let's talk. Let's talk also college football, because another team I love is also undefeated. It's been a great year. Thanks for asking. The Georgia Bulldogs came home yesterday. Hosted Mizzou. Mizzou's been out here putting up points on people, but not really stopping anyone. And they gave them a fight early. That first quarter is 14-all, and I'm like, what? Mizzou came in 1-4, 0-3 SEC. Georgia 6-0, 3-0 SEC play, and it was tight early. Georgia came out yucking a little bit. They looked really good throwing the ball, but Mizzou had back-to-back 63-yard touchdown passes to tie it all up. Then the second and third quarters happened, where Georgia outscored Mizzou 33-7 and kind of coasted down the stretch to win 53-28. Jake Fromm was able to put up 326 yards and 2 touches in his most impressive performance of the air. The running game for Georgia continued to just really debilitate teams. I think they put over another 350-yard day on the ground. Rich, I hate it.
Okay, why do you hate it?
Because I'm a Georgia fan. And because right now, we're presumably the number 3 team in the nation, which means, 1, more eyeballs than ever are watching us, and 2, the fall is only the more precipitous. That's it. It's pure fear.
Now, here's my question for you about it. I've been thinking about you whenever I see Georgia doing so well. What do they do about the quarterback? Does he transfer?
He's gonna win. I've been saying this all season. He will win a national title at Miami for Coach Richt in 2020.
Okay.
But he's gonna get a ring. But he might get a ring here first.
Oh, wow! You're going there. You're going.
Look.
Dream big.
The thing is, I'll be crazy. I've been this close in years. The last time I was this close, we ended up playing Hawaii in the 05. I think it had to be 07 Sugar Bowl. And everyone told me, oh man, this Hawaii team is something else. You guys can really send a message. And Georgia blew them out like 45-0. They hurt 3 receivers. They almost broke the quarterback in half. It was one of those last seasons with one of those just furious Georgia defenses. It was a great game to watch. It was the last time I could say, hey, Georgia had a shake at that title. Then when Georgia lost to Bama in the SEC title game and Bama went on a roll, Notre Dame, that was the second time I said, that could have been us. 4 teams in. I look at Georgia's schedule. And again, this isn't a Georgia podcast, and I apologize for those of you who don't care, but if your team's good, how about you basking it one time for me? Georgia's off this weekend. Next weekend, the weekend after that, it's the Florida game, where literally anything can happen. They could lose by 3 touchdowns to Florida. That's a very real possibility. Then they home for South Carolina on the day of my wedding. I haven't seen anything that would make me fear South Carolina. Auburn going to the Plains the next week. That's a nerve-wracking game. Just anything happens in Auburn, and because they just lost to LSU, they're going to be desperate, calling for a win. Kentucky's got a defense now. Say what you about Kentucky. Say what you about the Stoops under Stoops coaching them. They've got a defense, and then Tech, who is Tech, which whatever they are that they are. They run the option. Things get weird with the option. I'm not expecting anything. But I'll allow for some hope. I'll allow for it. Columbia's 5-0, baby. Why? Let's all everybody get some hope in.
Hey, I won't fight you on it. My team is currently 2-5, I think. 2-6. I don't even know, but I'd kind of blacked out.
And that's the crazy thing is, I talk to Georgia fans that are like, "Of course we're good." I'm like, "What do you mean, of course? Like, this is not like we're not destined to be great. Like, we're Georgia." Like, you got to realize who we are. Like, that said, 2-5, they'd fire the governor.
Yeah.
They'd get him out the paint. Like, we go fix something. They'd fire the whole state. They'd let everyone try something new. Everyone rotate at one position. We're going to try something else. But yeah, Georgia, Columbia, rolling along. People who like to see me happy are so mad. People who like to see me mad are so mad. I love it because I'm becoming insufferable because my teams are good. Because we all know it's very, very temporary. Let's stay in the SEC, clean up the rest of the weekend. I already mentioned LSU knocking off Auburn by the transitive property. Troy's the number 10 team in the nation.
Hey, that makes my mama happy. She is a proud Troy alumnus. She didn't even realize they had a football team.
Came out and beat LSU in Death Valley at night. Like, hey, that's some magic working right there. Alabama Look, this Bielema thing in Arkansas, I know that it's a lot of money for that buyout, but y'all got to ask a question or two, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, Arkansas is not exactly a bunch of world beaters historically, but you got to put up a better fight than 9-41. That just doesn't look good in the box score. BYU got destroyed by Mississippi State. Nick Fitzgerald found his way back onto the successful side of the win column. 10-35, they beat up BYU. South Carolina and Tennessee, and look, Tennessee. So everybody in Tennessee knows they're going to fire Butch. They're not going to fire him before the Bama game because why ruin two coaches? You just let him get beat by Bama, then fire him. And then my thing is though, like there's a very real possibility you lose to Vanderbilt. So do you keep Butch Jones in the season?
Might as well. You got to pay him either way.
Like I just feel like there's no win in firing him at all. Like you could lose to Vandy. It's on the table.
Right.
There's a Vandy team that got beat in Oxford 57-35 this past weekend. Ole Miss, whatever. That's fine. Whatever, Ole Miss. Sure. You're not going to trick me into believing in you by beating up at Vanderbilt at home. That's their first SEC win, their third win of the season. No thank in you. And in the stinker of the week. Remember when Kevin Sumlin was done? Like 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
They told you Kevin Sumlin, he's done in this town. College Station's done with Kevin Sumlin. They went on the road to the swamp and beat Florida 19-17. Now the questions are coming out of Gainesville. What's happening? Where did we go wrong? And I think that while in 2 weeks they could right the ship very well against Georgia, I'm also really glad that there's no coaches on the market that actually terrified me from an offensive perspective, except for Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly will never take an SEC job because SEC jobs require you to shake hands, kiss babies, go to booster meetings, and raise money and recruit. And Chip Kelly don't do none of that shit.
None.
Never has, never will. Chip Kelly's not about that life. The SEC has come out, and it's really confusing.
Sorry, I just gasped as I saw Aaron Rodgers die, and he's my quarterback. I'm not talking fantasy football quarterback. I'm talking one of the few
just pure talent appreciation.
Well, talent appreciation and one of the few white quarterbacks to come out and say Colin Kaepernick should have a job.
Yep.
So
100%
sure. And so he just went down and he got carted off. And
oh no,
he carted his right shoulder.
Who are they playing?
Minnesota.
Oh, I do like that defense. Let's wrap this up. This college football weekend, the top 25, and I got a question for you, Rich. And I think I know the answer. If I'm the defending national champions, why am I playing on Friday night on the road?
ACC. It's just what.
Like what? Why is Clemson on the road on Friday night?
It's just different in the ACC. We don't have a blonde on the beach to talk about it, but yeah, it's not ideal. I want to say like the day off for them. Like the plan would be, hey, you have Syracuse on a Friday night. You get like a 8-day break. You know, it's going to be pretty good, yada, yada. And then, yeah.
And then no one told Syracuse.
Nope.
And I know we've mostly put to bed Clemsoning, and that's just kind of a juvenile way to, you got Clemson. They Clemsoned all over the place. Oh my God, look at all the Clemson they spilled. They got Clemson everywhere.
See this side coming out of you right now. I don't know about it. That's not right.
Look at all that Clemson. There's Clemson over everything. That's never coming out. Just throw out that rug. It's been ruined by Clemson.
And good for Dino because he's looking good. Black head coaches, man. He's out there.
I'm saying, get out right now. Don't become Turner Gill. Don't stay another year.
Mm-mm.
Get out. When they talk about you, leave.
That's
every black head coach in America. All right, I'm sorry. That Clemson thing had to happen. Yeah, it's crazy to me. The ACC's gone full ACC, and it's only week 6 or 7, and I don't know what's next. Like that was like Clemson was the layup. Clemson was the of course they're going to be in. Like now you got to ask a lot of questions because not only did Clemson on Friday, Pac-12 went after dark on a Friday night as Cal beats Washington State. At least the Clemson game was like down to the wire, and Syracuse wins by 3. Washington State never showed up at Cal. 37-3, blow it out on the road.
5 picks.
I was literally agape. I woke up the next day because I did not stay up for that game, and I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, 5 picks by Luke Falk, who looked like he just figured out this strange human sport called football. Like, if you look at that meme of Dr. Manhattan, of this planet and its people bore me, that's how Luke Falk felt about the third quarter. Like, really?
It bored him. You're 100% right. And what's crazy is, so last week I said that, this was like a mini chaos week. I can't wait for real crazy things to happen. You shouldn't say that, one, if your team's good, because I spent all day nervous yesterday. You definitely shouldn't say it, two, if your team's going to be tied at the end of the first quarter after a day full of upsets. And three, don't say it if your team plays the late game. Well, I felt conflicted on all of these things. Because I thought maybe Friday was a precursor to some, maybe that was all the crazy we're going to get. We're going to sustain lots of little pockets of crazy this season. Oh, no, because Saturday went full college football. Before Georgia held on and decided to release my heart from its grasp, Washington lost to Arizona State because Chip Peterson, I don't know what to do, Chris Peterson, he built the perfect machine again, and it failed him again.
Yeah.
This is the team he wanted. This is the team he designed from the ground up, and it failed him again. Is it a him thing? Is it just don't bet on like this? And also, this is why the mantra of the UD pod remains: never gamble on college kids.
Nope.
This is why you don't bet on college kids, because Washington should not be losing to Arizona State. Shouldn't be happening. TCU beat up Kansas State 26-6. Purdue fell to Wisconsin 17-9. Ohio State, hey, so one day you're going to have to tell your son that Nebraska was good at football at one point, right?
Right.
Like, you have to explain to him that Nebraska football was a thing.
I'm going to put it up with, old timey, even if it's video from, 98. I'm going to put it up.
I'm going to explain it. You explain to them at the same time you explain that Notre Dame used to be good, too.
Mm.
But we won't be able to explain that one. I don't know why, but it happened. Miami, last-second field goal, beats Georgia Tech. And say what you will about the Canes and all the fun stuff that's happening, Coach Richt hasn't met a Tech team he couldn't beat. I would have gone on a job interview. I'm getting you one good win a year, and it will be Tech. I guarantee it. Oklahoma beat Texas in the Red River Shootout 29-24. USC held on late to beat Utah 28-27. Oklahoma State rolled Baylor 59-16. Michigan needed overtime to beat Indiana.
Listen, before you continue having that disdain in your voice, Indiana's receivers are legit. All three of them.
I'm not speaking to you anymore.
The receivers are good.
How dare you?
They're good. I mean, I'm not saying the rest of the team is, but you guys.
You can lie to your listeners on your podcast.
The receivers, they're pretty good. You're gonna have at least.
I will not abide this. Peyton Ramsey is the quarterback for Indiana. Peyton Ramsey's numbers from Saturday are 20 for 41 for 178.
Yeah, and who did he throw it to?
Luke Tiemann, 7 receptions for 95.
There you go.
Let me see the drops of Luke. They don't keep drops for kids because it's unfair to college kids. Don't do that. Don't come over here extolling the virtues of Indiana receiving corps. Absolutely not. USF beat Cincinnati 33-3. I'm talking about this game, so I can stop talking about the Indiana game. So I just came here to make fun of Michigan, and you over here trying to lie for them. Boise State beat San Diego State 31-14. NC State, who is either good or really bad. I honestly don't know. They're 6-1, 4-0 in league. They beat Pitt 35-17. What's going on in Pitt? What you guys gonna figure out anytime soon?
I don't know. It was a bye week. We've been on a bye week for about 4 weeks. I don't know what you're talking about.
Michigan State beat Minnesota 30-27. Is the Big Ten's not good? That's all I'm learning. The Big Ten's not very good, right?
Right.
Or they're all. People want parity. The Big Ten. There's your parity. Occasional outlier in Ohio State, but by and large, there's your parity. You want a parity in college football? It's called Big Ten football. All these teams are bad. UCF beat Eastern Carolina 63-21. Stanford and Bryce Love ran all over Oregon 49-7. Texas Tech, West Virginia, I swear to God, every year they just come out of nowhere. They're exciting, they're fun, and then they vanish just as quickly. 46-35, they've knocked out Texas Tech. Memphis beat Navy 30-27, and USF or South Florida UMass got canceled. That's crazy. Yeah, but that's it. And that's going to be all the college football. Anything that stuck out for you this weekend in college football while we had all the upsets?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out for me this week is the class of quarterbacks that have been touted as far superior than the young man I'm watching on TV right now, Deshaun Watson and his ilk, collectively pooped the bed. I mean, even with UFC's win, Sam Darnold looked like Sam Malone from Cheers out there just throwing interceptions and got bailed out by the fact that a coach went a little bit more risk averse than almost every other coach would and went for two to kind of put it away. And they were a 2-point conversion away from asking the hard questions about, is Sam Darnold ready for the NFL?
Sometimes you got to ask the questions, though.
Yeah. Especially about the quality receivers in Indiana. But, it's like watching Hoosiers out wide. It's like grit on grit on grit.
Plug your stuff. Let's get out of here. That's ridiculous.
Well, if people want to be annoyed by my rants about social justice, football, life, wrestling, feel free to go on Twitter. I'm at Rich_Fann, 2 N's, like the appliance with an extra N. If you want to follow my football stuff for the Bills, it's at Buffalo Wins for our Twitter feed and BuffaloWins.net for the website. And, of course, you can go to PWTorch.com/GoVIP to find out about all the fun things you can do should you join the Torch family.
There you go. Thanks for coming on, Rich. Really do appreciate having you on. This has been Unanimous Decision Podcast. I'm your host, D-Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. If you're going to talk about the show on social media, please use the hashtag UDPod. Email us at udpodcast@gmail.com with your stories about how football or any other sport decided that you were done with it. Or excuse me, you may not have done with it, but it was definitely done with you. Next week we'll be back on. Just so you guys know, I keep making like oblique references. I am getting hitched. I'm getting married in 2 weeks. So what I can guarantee for you guys is that for the next 2 weeks, you're going to get both UD pods and quick snaps. There will be a break. I'm not going to podcast over the wedding weekend and probably the next weekend. The last new podcast you're going to get from me will be recorded on the 1st of November. We do our Super Tuesday. I'm taking about 2 weeks off after that. I might, depending on how much downtime I have, chop up some best of episodes, put something together for you guys, make no commitments, but I put it out there, so now at least I have some pressure to do it. And that's it. We're going to have a lot of fun before we get there. Next week's show is going to be a lot of fun, and so is the 29th. We're going to have a lot of great shows as we head into the fall, and head into NBA season, and gloriously, Rich, head into Survivor Series season. I think we'll be having a little bit of talk about that on this here network.
Oh.
That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys next week.